Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club for the kickoff of the 2013 Business Leader Series with Rex Tillerson of Exxon Mobil. We're here today at a time when the momentum in Cleveland is undeniable. Over the past few years, there's been a record investment in our downtown core. What's more, there's been unprecedented collaboration between our city, our county, and our corporate and nonprofit communities. And while many look to the cranes in our skyline as a sign of progress, we also look to rooms like this, where the community comes together to listen to the perspectives of a global leader like Rex and finds a way to weave these new thoughts and ideas into the fabric of our region to add to our momentum. That's what the Business Leader Series is all about, and I hope you'll be able to join us as we focus on many of the economic drivers in our region throughout the rest of the Business Leader Series in the future. Our focus today is on energy and innovation, and unless you've been living under a dark, dense, sedimentary rock for the past few years, you're here because you want to hear more about this incredible reserve of natural gas just to the east and how accessing this reserve will affect our economy, our region, and our country, and again, how it plays out globally. We are honored to have the leader of the world's largest publicly traded international oil and gas company with us today to share this perspective. Mr. Tillerson is deeply rooted in the oil and gas industry. He grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas, and earned a bachelor's degree in civil engineering at the University of Texas at Austin before joining Exxon Company as a production engineer. In 1992, he was named production advisor for Exxon Corporation, and from 95 to 99, he was responsible for Exxon's holdings in Russia and the Caspian Sea, as well as operations offshore in Sakhalin Island, Russia. Mr. Tillerson was named Senior Vice President of Exxon Mobil Corporation in August 2001, and was elected president of the corporation and member of the board of directors on March 1st, 2004. He assumed his current position on January 1st, 2006. Mr. Tillerson is a member of the executive committee and is a former chairman of the American Petroleum Institute. He is also a trustee of the Center of Strategic and International Studies. He is a member of the National Petroleum Council, a member of the Business Roundtable, and an honorary trustee of the Business Council for International Understanding, and a member of the Emergency Committee for American Trade. He's immediate past president of the Boy Scouts of America, vice chairman of the Ford's Theater Society, and a former director of the United Negro College Fund. He is also a member of the Chancellor's Council and the Engineering Advisory Board of the University of Texas at Austin and the Society of Petroleum Engineers. Incredibly accomplished person. We're delighted to have Mr. Tillerson, so please join me in providing a warm Cleveland welcome to Mr. Rex Tillerson.
Thank you, Dan, for the very kind introduction, and it truly is a pleasure of mine to be in the state of Ohio and to have this opportunity to address the City Club of Cleveland. I'm well aware that the City Club Forum has a long and prestigious history as a place for open exchange of ideas and consideration of great questions. I know the club has in the past hosted presidents, secretaries of state, and corporate leaders, all of whom have offered their insights and vision for the direction of our world and the choices that we must make together. Thank you for welcoming me here today. In that spirit of substantive and respectful dialogue this afternoon, I will discuss how energy is paving the way for economic transformation in North America, why we must understand the role of investment and innovation in creating this new abundance of energy, and what we must do in government, industry, and in society to build on our successes and ensure our progress continues into the future, and importantly, that it is felt by all peoples. It's particularly fitting to take up these great questions in this state and in this city, and particularly at this time. Few states are better positioned or have a broader historical perspective than Ohio for understanding the extraordinary opportunities that flow from investment and innovation in energy. It was here in Cleveland in 1863, just a few miles from where we're sitting, where two young entrepreneurs made a far-sighted investment to create a cutting-edge refinery called Excelsior Works. It was here in Cleveland the Standard Oil and many other American companies first began to revolutionize the petroleum industry with new technologies, new processes, new efficiencies. With this contribution Cleveland would become the epicenter of an industry that would eventually lift all industries and every human endeavor. At first, the result of this investment and innovation in Cleveland would simply supply lamps with high-quality kerosene to illuminate the night, creating more time for reading, more time for study, invention, and family bonding. As the century progressed, new petroleum products would soon be driving manufacturing and improving performance in everything from automobiles to pharmaceuticals. And as a global trade expanded and new efficiencies were introduced, the energy industry would help more and more consumers across the United States, in Europe, and eventually around the world. Today, the hopes and opportunities for billions of people, especially in the developing part of the world, will depend on their access to energy. As we look at the world in the years leading up to 2040, that's about as far out as I'm willing to guess, we project that increasing population, along with growing prosperity, will increase global demand for energy by about 1/3 above where it is today. Now, to give you some perspective of the size of that, that is like adding more than the current energy demand of Russia, India, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East combined. Meeting this demand will require the world to develop all sources of energy wherever they are economically competitive. We will need wind and solar. We'll need nuclear, coal, oil, and natural gas. Many of these sources will grow rapidly. For example, we expect wind-powered energy will grow 7-fold over the next 30 years. Solar-powered generation, we expect it will increase 20 times what it is today. But even with that rapid growth, wind will account for about 7% of global electricity supply, and solar will account for about 2%. In the decades ahead, oil and natural gas will continue to shoulder much of the world's energy needs, about 60% in the year 2040, up from about 55% today. This means we will need policies that encourage investment and innovation in all sources so we can meet the world's energy needs safely, securely, and responsibly. Today, the state of Ohio and our nation are witnessing how innovation and investment in energy technologies can pave the way to a brighter future. In less than a decade, the North American energy story has changed, and with it, the global energy landscape. Sources of oil and natural gas once dismissed as uneconomic or inaccessible are being transformed into energy supplies that are affordable, accessible, and reliable. And just as important, our technologies are enabling us to develop these resources safely, securely, and responsibly. In Canada, for instance, sustained investment and decades of innovation are enabling the development of that nation's vast oil sands. This means we now have access to a resource base of approximately 170 billion barrels of recoverable oil. That's enough energy to fuel today's North American personal vehicle fleet for 45 years. In the Gulf of Mexico, we have steadily advanced offshore exploration from the drawing board when I was a young engineer to the ultra-deepwater depths now exceeding 10,000 feet of water. And like so many of our investments and innovations in new technologies, we continue to improve safety and risk management as we advance those technologies. Over the past few years, our industry has come together like never before to create tremendous strides in our emergency response capabilities. We know we're going to have incidents. We're going to manage those, try to mitigate them, try to prevent them, but when we have them, what's really important is how do we respond to them. With these ongoing discoveries and improvements, we anticipate over the next 25 years more than a doubling from North America and worldwide deepwater production. Finally, the most unexpected and potentially most far-reaching breakthrough is our advanced integration of hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling. These technologies and techniques are enabling the development of natural gas and oil, which are found in extremely dense geologic formations. These so-called unconventional sources of natural gas and oil are often referred to as shale gas and tight oil because of their origin in shale or lower other porosity rock thousands of feet beneath the Earth's surface. In North America, our breakthroughs mean that we can unlock vast new supplies of this new natural gas and oil, and we can do so safely and responsibly because these technologies are among the most well-tested and proven in science and engineering. For decades now, we have improved these technologies by studying and managing risk effectively, communicating best practices, and applying what we call operations integrity to ensure we are safe and responsible every day. What is game-changing is how we have combined or integrated technology to drill horizontally with the technologies that make hairline fractures in the rocks to enable oil and gas to flow to the surface. In addition, we have fine-tuned this integrated process with advanced imagery using high-speed computing technology. Since 2008, U.S. natural gas production is up 19%. This additional increase in supply is enough by itself to meet 90% of the natural gas consumed in all homes in the United States. And industry technologies have now put within reach enough natural gas to help power the U.S. economy at current demand for about another century. These new technologies have boosted more than natural gas supplies. Domestic oil production is also up sharply. Since 2008, full-year domestic oil production has risen about 30%. In fact, by the end of last year, the increase alone in our production, just the increase, was equivalent to nearly the entire output of Nigeria, the 7th largest producing country in OPEC. The good news for our economy is that investments and innovation in the energy industry carry a tremendous multiplier effect. Simply put, affordable and reliable supplies of energy are the building blocks for a healthier economy. By increasing private sector investment, creating new jobs, and providing new tax revenues, the energy industry's contributions over the past few years have been strong and very much needed. For example, in 2011 alone, the oil and gas industry generated more than $500 billion of investment in the form of capital, wages, and dividends. In fact, the entire oil and natural gas sector currently supports an estimated 9.2 million American jobs and 7.7% of the U.S. economy. In a recent study, the energy research firm IHS estimated that in 2012, unconventional oil and gas development alone contributed more than $63 billion in federal, state, and local tax receipts. By the year 2020, total government revenues will nearly double. And on a cumulative basis, between the years 2012 and 2035, unconventional oil and natural gas activity will generate more than $2.5 trillion in tax revenues. Our industry's innovations in oil and natural gas production are all the more impressive because the economic transformation they have brought has often been in regions that have been struggling with growth now for decades. For the more than 50 million people living in the small cities, towns, and rural areas of America's heartland, inflation-adjusted average per capita income rose between 2007 and 2011. Across this same time, incomes were falling in the U.S. cities. Our industry's innovation and investments in energy are also increasing our nation's competitiveness. The economic benefits of reliable and affordable energy go far beyond just the jobs created by developing and producing energy. They send a powerful ripple effect through the economy that benefits businesses and consumers in almost every sector. Vast new supplies of natural gas are helping revitalize America's steel industry, which will contribute to the rebuilding of our nation's infrastructure and automotive manufacturing. And these new gas supplies are also reinvigorating America's petrochemical industry, increasing agricultural competitiveness, and boosting American exports of bulldozers, farm equipment, and other heavy vehicles. Here in Ohio, energy-related investments have been announced to expand pipe manufacturing, gas separation, and gas processing. This translates to hundreds of millions of dollars in new capacity, and with it, of course, comes new jobs. Industry innovations are being felt far beyond the borders of the states where energy production takes place. Energy-related economic benefits are extending to the 32 states without this new energy production. New York State, for instance, has more than 44,000 industry-supported jobs, with many of those the direct result of the Marcellus shale development next door in Pennsylvania. The energy supply chain can reach deep into non-producing states, such as Illinois, which is providing fabricated mantle manufacturing. Massachusetts is supplying software and information technology, and Connecticut is delivering financial services and insurance for the industry. Even more surprising, for many anyway, is that our industry's contributions have gone far beyond economics. The vast new supplies of cleaner burning natural gas are helping our nation meet shared environmental goals, and the benefits are truly extraordinary. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has estimated that in 2012, energy-related U.S. carbon dioxide emissions had fallen to their lowest level in more than a decade and a half. Now, what makes this particularly extraordinary is that the United States has about 50 million more energy consumers than we had in 1995, and we have an economy that's about 50% larger than we had in 1995, and yet our CO2 emissions have now dropped to about where they were in 1995. The economic and environmental benefits of our innovation and investment are just the beginning. Our nation can do more, but we must first recognize that investment and innovation are the prime drivers of the technologies that enable us to unlock vast new supplies of energy. In fact, as we look at the challenges of the future, we must recognize that all of us have a role in building a nation that encourages and sustains such innovation. We will need industry, government, and society to do their part so we give the next generation a new hope and new opportunity. The first priority and the highest commitment of my industry is and always will be to operate in a safe, secure, and environmentally responsible manner as we deliver the products that help consumers live better lives. We must operate with integrity, from planning and investment to construction and project completion. Effective risk management, operational excellence, and cutting-edge response capabilities build trust and communicate in actions the science and engineering that are constantly advancing to develop energy safely and responsibly. Our commitment and track record of operational integrity have been especially important as we have applied hydraulic fracturing, horizontal drilling, and other innovative technologies to the development of unconventional supplies of natural gas and oil. Our presence in local communities around the country has allowed the energy industry to create local jobs and spur local growth. It has also encouraged our industry to engage with the public at every level, especially the local level. We have had the opportunity to reach out to citizens to discuss innovative risk management techniques, how we work with state and local officials to ensure industry accountability, and how we minimize our environmental footprint to address local needs. In town hall meetings and public forums, we describe how we work with local leaders to study the land and environmental impacts where we drill, how we design and build wells with safeguards in place to protect groundwater, and how we have vigorous standards in place to monitor and maintain wells even after the drilling is complete. Government also has a role to play in innovation. That begins with understanding the role of the private sector. Energy projects are the ultimate long-term investment. The spending patterns are very long, even before the first dollar of revenue is realized. And the completion cycles are also very long, sometimes more than 75 years to depletion, with reinvestment required all along the way. The International Energy Agency estimates that the global energy industry will need to invest about $37 trillion in energy supply infrastructure between now and the year 2035. That comes to $1.6 trillion a year. Government is uniquely positioned to establish the sound legal, regulatory, and tax policies needed to ensure a business climate that enables such long-term investment and innovation. Too often, we find officials focus on near-term ups and downs of commodity prices, the cycles that are reflected at the pump, or they focus on picking winners and losers through subsidies, mandates, and arcane tax provisions. It is far more effective to put in place stable, unbiased, and transparent policies so business can make better plans and make sustained investments over these very long time horizons. In addition, the regulatory process should provide a clear and efficient pathway to meet the public's expectations for safety, efficiency, and environmental protection. One of the most important ways to do this is to ensure that public policies are governed by sound science and economic assessments of the costs and the benefits. In this regard, Ohio really has been a leader. Environmental rules are rigorous and demanding, but regulators are guided by science. They seek to work with industry to provide guidance and clarity for compliance. Business can proceed with confidence, knowing that by meeting and exceeding safety and environmental requirements, we can advance our projects to completion. Government can support innovation in another way, by providing access to resources and opening avenues of trade. With increased access, disciplined investment, and the innovative application of technology, our industry can further expand supplies, create jobs, and fuel growth in North America. In the United States, many prospective areas for oil and natural gas lie under federal lands that are owned by you, the American people. Yet these lands have been kept off limits in drilling for decades, denying the American people the economic benefit for development of the resources that you own. Many of these resources can be safely and responsibly developed using the technologies I've described, including things like 3D seismic imaging, advanced reservoir computer modeling, the extended reach drilling. Such technologies allow us in the industry to see underground like never before, plan on how to maximize the efficient recovery of the resource, and to minimize our environmental footprint as we plan the development. In some of the most remote places and most challenging conditions on Earth, our industry is proving we can safely and responsibly explore for energy while protecting the people and the ecosystems nearby. We can do so here in the United States, and the benefits for citizens and consumers would be substantive and lasting. One study by energy researcher Wood Mackenzie estimates that forward-looking policies that increase access and expand opportunities for oil and natural gas production, including on federal lands, would create more than 1 million additional jobs and generate hundreds of billions of dollars more in revenue at all levels of government, federal, state, and local. Recognizing the role of investment and innovation should encourage our nation and our elected leaders to be more optimistic about international trade and investment. This is critical because our nation is now poised to not only meet our nation's domestic energy needs, but to become a significant exporter of natural gas. Economic studies and academic analysis indicate that by allowing exports, we can attract new and sustained investment that will expand our own domestic supplies, create jobs, and help promote and sustain new economic opportunities for Americans. As a study commissioned by the Department of Energy concluded, and I quote, "U.S. economic welfare consistently increases as the volume of natural gas exports increase." There's still a danger that U.S. policymakers could institute limits on natural gas exports instead of allowing market forces to create a real and lasting economic benefit. But there are many reasons for optimism. Our national discussion of this issue has encouraged hundreds of leaders from every level of government to stand up and reaffirm the value of free trade for our nation. Governors and trade associations, economists and manufacturing companies, members of both parties in Congress have created an overwhelming public consensus in support of maintaining access to global markets, where a portion of our extraordinary national abundance could help deliver to the international community significant health and environmental benefits. In the decades ahead, citizens and consumers will also need to be involved in the effort to strengthen innovation. Our public debates and discussions in society at large need to be framed by facts and science, fundamental physics and basic economics. We must build a renewed appreciation for the timelines required to advance technology, the scale of the challenges confronting us, and the important roles of engineers and scientists in driving incremental improvements as well as reinventing revolutionary breakthroughs. One of our most important priorities in this effort must be to improve our nation's educational outcomes, especially in science, technology, engineering, and math. Even as America's energy industry has led the world for the past few decades, there are reasons to be concerned about America's long-term competitiveness. 3 decades ago, the United States ranked third among developed nations for college students earning degrees in science and engineering. Today, about 20 other countries rank ahead of the United States in these vital subjects. In addition, according to the Program for International Student Assessment, PISA, U.S. high school students scored 17th in science and 25th in math when compared to students from other countries. Science, technology, engineering, and math are not just important to innovation in our nation. They are also the gateways to opportunity for millions of students. That's why in 2007, Exxon Mobil led the founding of the National Math and Science Initiative, and it's why we continue to press forward with that commitment today. Our goal was very simple: to find the programs that have measurable outcomes, that prove they work, and then to scale them up in schools and universities across our nation. Recent studies of the world's best school systems show that nothing drives educational achievement more than high-quality teachers. So NIMSY supports the training of highly qualified teachers and helps students pursue courses that prepare them for college. The first program we identified was UTeach, which originated at the University of Texas at Austin. UTeach helps undergraduate students who are earning a degree in math or science to also earn a teaching certificate by providing an integrated degree plan, financial assistance, and early teaching experience. Since its inception, more than 9 out of 10 UTeach graduates have become teachers. 8 in 10 are still in the classroom 5 years later. That's compared to fewer than 65% of teachers nationally. And importantly, 45% of these teachers went to work in high-needs school districts. I was particularly pleased to learn that Cleveland State University has partnered with NIMSY to institute UTeach into their curricula. The second program is the Advanced Placement Training and Incentive Program. This program encourages schools to expand college-level AP courses in high school and encourage teacher training in AP courses. The National Center for Education Accountability has confirmed that when students take and pass an advanced placement course, they are significantly more likely to graduate from college. The results are nothing short of striking. Over the past 4 years, participating schools have increased their qualifying AP test scores in math and science by 160%, 5 times higher than the national average. NIMSY's AP program has been adopted at Fairborn High School outside of Dayton. These 2 successful programs have proven we can help improve educational outcomes by identifying and supporting evidence-based programs. We can help increase innovation in another way. Respected and influential leaders, like all of you in this room, can lend your voices and support to the cause of maintaining high standards. Nowhere is this needed more than in the effort to sustain support for the Common Core state standards for education. These voluntary, state-driven standards are a set of expectations for the knowledge and skills that students from kindergarten to 12th grade need to master for college and career readiness, and they measure us against the international standards, benchmarking us against the most competitive education systems around the world, including Singapore, Finland, Canada, and the UK. Ohio should be commended. The Buckeye State has already embraced these standards and is working to implement them. But as a leader among the states, we will need to explain the value of the Common Core approach as our schools work to meet society's high expectations for every student. This is not going to be easy, and there is real temptation to back away from these standards as they're being implemented because they are difficult. We need everyone to stress to your leaders in the state how important it is to stay the course. These high standards will create a roadmap for progress and accountability. They'll help us challenge students, identify where schools need to improve, and provide our teachers with the support and training they need to teach the scientists, engineers, and innovators of the future. You know, as a nation, we will face many challenges in the years ahead. But as so many of the leaders who have come to the City Club of Cleveland have proven, we can overcome even the greatest national challenges by setting out a vision, working together, and promoting the unfettered freedom and ability of Americans everywhere to invest in new ideas and innovative practices. We can encourage change in government, industry, and society more broadly. America's energy industry has proven we will do our part to deliver the reliable and affordable energy supplies every consumer needs to pursue his or her dream. As we have proven that we will continue to invest and innovate so that energy is delivered in an increasingly safe, efficient, and responsible way. With government, industry, and society united, we can put in place energy policies that will enable us to continue to meet the challenges of the future, improve the educational outcomes for our children, and lay the ground for hope, opportunity, and innovation for the decades to come. I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thanks, Rex. That was tremendous. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a Friday forum featuring Rex Tillerson, Chairman and CEO of Exxon Mobil Corporation. We will return to our speaker momentarily for our traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate your questions for our speaker now and remind you that your questions should be brief and to the point. We welcome all of you here and those listening to WCPN 90.3 FM, WCLV, WTAM, or one of the many radio stations across the country. Our television broadcast partners are WVIZ, PBS Idea Stream, and television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC. Our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. Next Friday, June 21st, the City Club will host a panel discussion with leading public radio news directors from around the country on breaking news and getting it right. Friday, June 28th, the City Club welcomes Dr. Karen Mossberger, Professor of Public Administration at the University of Illinois, Chicago. For more information about upcoming forums, please refer to our website, www.cityclub.org. If you wish to make reservations for upcoming programs or order a CD or DVD of today's program, please call 1-888-223-6786 or 216-621-0082. We welcome guests today at our tables hosted by Baker Hostetler, Boy Scouts of America, the Cleveland Clinic, Falls Communications, the Greater Cleveland Partnership, Humana, Huntington Bank, Inside Business, Meaden and More, Ohio Oil, Shale and Gas, ShaleCom, URS, and Van Cleef Asset Management. We thank you for your support. Today's program is part of the Business Leader Series, a partnership between the City Club and Inside Business magazine, and is brought to you today by the generous support of Huntington Bank. We also thank Meaden and More, Humana, ShaleCom, and Falls Communications for their support of the series. Joining us at the head table are representatives from each of our sponsoring organizations. Would our sponsors please stand and be recognized? Now, we would like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphone today is the City Club Development Associate Michael Crimaldi, back over there, and Program Director Carrie Miller, back over here. So, I'll invite you back up to the podium for our first question, Rex.
Let me begin by saying that I'm an Exxon shareholder and that Exxon has been very good to me and my family, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. I love happy shareholders.
Two things I'm interested in your commentary on. One is I'm concerned that we have an archaic tax policy, and one of the things that I hear about in the media is that there are unnecessary subsidies to the energy and agricultural business. Can you speak to that? What is your opinion as it relates to the energy industry? The second topic is on senior executive compensation. It sounds as though I'm led to believe that that compensation is growing at an accelerating rate relative to the rest of the employees, and should I be concerned about that?
Well, I'll answer the second one first because it's brief. No. I just need to make sure I'm making a lot of money for my shareholders. The tax policy question is an important one, and as all of you no doubt are well aware, there is significant activity underway in Washington to think about comprehensive tax reform for corporate taxes, but also ultimately for individual taxes as well. Now that's why it becomes complicated. But it's hard to reform one part of the tax code without touching the other part. As to the oil and gas industry and the characterization of some of the tax provisions as subsidies, and I use that word characterization because they're really a mischaracterization. When people point to the line items, and we can go down every one of the line items that they speak to, those are, in many cases, they're simply general provisions of the tax code that apply to all industries. And I'll give you an example of one that you'll hear about oftentimes. It's called the Section 199 Manufacturer's Tax Deduction. And this was put in place several years ago to stimulate job creation in the manufacturing sector of the economy. And it gives you a certain percentage deduction of your payroll against your taxes to allow you, some incentive to hire more people. Now, when that was put in place, the manufacturer's tax deduction, which applies to not just the oil and gas industry, certainly it applies to the traditional manufacturers you would think about, car automakers, but it applies to movie film makers, it applies to newspaper publishers, it applies very broadly across the economy. That standard rate was 9%. The oil and gas industry, when that law was passed, though, were only given a 6% deduction. So we already do not receive the generally allowed manufacturer's tax deduction on the tax code today, and that was put in place at the beginning. And that's just one example I'd give you. And if you go down every one of the line items that people like to point to and they characterize them as subsidies, there's a corollary throughout the tax code for businesses generally. LIFO accounting, last in, first out accounting, applies to all types of industries, not just ours. So I think it is a mischaracterization when they're called subsidies because the only incentives that I could describe that exist out there, and they're not in the tax code, they're really in the royalty code. And back in the days when we were struggling to make deepwater exploration profitable, commercial, the Congress, we were in a crisis, an energy crisis, is when we thought we were running out of oil. The Congress passed deepwater royalty relief, which allowed us not to have to pay federal royalties on the first fixed amount of number of barrels, not on the whole discovery, but the first fixed number of barrels we would produce, and it gave us some upfront cash flow to help our economics work. So I think a lot of the time when you hear these things characterized as subsidies, it's just a mischaracterization. It's just that we're just applying the tax code as every other business does. From a tax standpoint, I gave you some figures in there of how much our industry pays. I can tell you in Exxon Mobil's case, we pay more taxes every year, federal income taxes, than we earn in the United States in total earnings. Now, true, 70% of our earnings are outside of the U.S. We pay a lot of taxes over there, too. But the point being, our U.S. tax payments have always exceeded our U.S. income. And that's okay. We're not complaining about it. And we do support comprehensive tax reform because we think the whole tax system has become overly complex for business, and it is making our corporate America businesses non-competitive globally. We have the highest corporate tax rate of any country in the world. Every other country has already gone through a tax reform and adjusted their corporate tax rates to be competitive globally. We've not touched ours in almost 30 years now. Something's got to be done because businesses are not able to invest and compete at a 35% income tax rate. It's pretty simple.
This question came in via Twitter from In the Wabe. An organized campaign, Fossil Free, is encouraging government institutions to divest from fossil fuel stocks. Seattle, San Francisco State University, and others have committed to divesting. What impact will this have on your business?
None. The market cap is so large, and the investors that are in the marketplace so diverse. I understand why some people want to invest on an ideological or philosophical standard, and that's fine. I mean, I think it's fine. It is a very small segment, and I'm not meaning to trivialize the question, because I know it's important to the people that feel that way, but it really has no impact on us. We've been buying back our stock at a very healthy rate now. From the time we did the Exxon Mobil merger, there were about 7 billion plus shares outstanding. There are now about 4.37 billion outstanding. So if they'd like to sell it, I'm probably the guy that'll buy it back from them.
Mr. Tillerson, thank you very much and welcome for a great talk. Like Mr. Morris, I too am a happy shareholder, but by hindsight, I wish I'd bought more, that's all. Would you please comment on the Keystone project? How can we get that off dead center? Is there some kind of a compromise that you can get the President to accept? And what is the expense to us, the cost to us, and consequences by our not doing it?
Well, it's an important question. It is baffling to all of us in the industry as to why a decision has not already been taken. This is I think, I tell people the Keystone Pipeline situation is the poster child for what's dysfunctional in the U.S. regulatory system. The proponents of that pipeline evaluated 14 different routes. They went through 3 years of public town hall meetings and public comment periods and did the draft environmental impact statement, a supplemental environmental impact statement, and a final environmental impact statement, submitted it to the State Department. The State Department issued a conclusion that the pipeline would cause no environmental harm. Okay, so now everything had been cleared to issue that permit, and then it wasn't issued. Now, if you're an investor like TransCanada, who had already pre-purchased billions of dollars of pipe and equipment to build this line, this is costing them a lot of money. And it's crazy. I mean, I don't know how to characterize it any other way. So then it was sent back for another decision. So they rewrote a little section to solve a problem that somebody in Nebraska decided they hadn't addressed, resubmitted their application again, they're still waiting. I don't know how it gets solved. I'll just be honest with you. We have all had conversations with the administration about it. I cannot tell you why the decision cannot be taken, and therefore I can't tell you when it might be taken or under what conditions, because no one is able to articulate to us what's standing in the way. So you'll have to figure that one out yourself. But it is an important, it's an important infrastructure project, but I think more importantly, I mean, that infrastructure project is extremely important to the United States in terms of giving us yet another source of energy. The more diverse sources we have, the more secure we are, the more stable we are. But I think the real damage that's being done by the way this decision has been handled is it has undermined our industry, and I would say investors broadly, confidence in the regulatory process in this country. And I've alluded to it, that, you know, we don't object regulation. My view is always the regulatory process should be there to give me the roadmap I need to follow to satisfy all of the concerns of the public interest. That's the only reason you have a regulation, protect the public interest. And then if I follow that process and I answer all those questions and I get to the end of it, then I get a permit, and I don't have to worry about that. But in this country, you can get stopped, sent back to go several different times along the way, and even when you get to the end of the process, get ready because you're headed to the courts, where your permit now gets challenged endlessly. This is killing investment in this country. I mean, I don't know of any other country that does things the way we do this in this country from a regulatory standpoint. And we have got to address that. And the Keystone is kind of the poster child for why this isn't working.
Sir, I applaud you for the education efforts on investing in science and math. But however, this is here in Cleveland area, we transitioned from manufacturing, I guess, to oil and gas or healthcare, if you will. Have Exxon far as invested in some of the softer areas, such as like creating small business opportunities for suppliers, policymakers, as far as people, future policymakers as relates to the oil and gas industry? Because it seems like this is going to be the next industry, if you will, as far as replace the manufacturing industry within this area.
Well, it's a great question because it takes an enormous amount of other industries to support what we do. And so manufacturers as well as technology companies are really important that they are developing as fast as our needs are. So one of the areas that we have invested heavily in over the last several years now is in support of minority businesses and minority manufacturers, because that's an undertapped source of potential out there in our economy and in the country, and help those businesses grow. So we have provided some seed money, we provide relationship building, we provide guidance on how to build that business, and that adds capacity to the system for us. Now, more broadly, and it's not so much in the U.S., but that same philosophy carries over to what we do. Our two other important philanthropic programs for us are empowering women in underdeveloped countries by taking them through economic training, and then in health areas. So we have spent a lot of effort in health in particular. But your question's a good one, and those are the areas and how we work those. I think what is important is the best way we can support that is by ensuring that people know what the opportunities are to supply our needs, by ensuring they're in our Rolodex, so to speak, of what our needs are, so that they have the opportunity to present what they can do. And in that way, if they can be successful, by creating that commerce that goes on between us, that's going to support the ultimate success in the areas that you're talking about. Because it's all got to be based on ultimately standing on its own.
Thank you. One of the great moral issues of our time is climate change, whether our generation will leave a habitable planet for our children. Exxon has been notorious for backing political forces that deny climate change and delay action. Yet your company website acknowledges that climate change is indeed a critical problem, and it says that a revenue-neutral carbon tax would be one of the best ways to address that problem. So when will Exxon stop trying to play it both ways and put its political muscle behind a carbon tax?
Well, Exxon Mobil is not playing it both ways, and that's a mischaracterization. I think because we support a broad array of groups, we believe the way you deal with an issue that is complex as this one is to have all voices heard. Now, our view of climate change is it's a serious problem. There are serious risks, and I view it as just a risk management problem. As a risk manager, it's a risk management problem. How do you want to manage the risk? There are some things we know and we understand about it, the science, and I'm going to deal with it always from a scientific standpoint. There are a lot of things about it we don't know and we don't understand. We have been supporting efforts at MIT now for almost 25 years, some of the best climate science modeling that can be done anywhere, done over at MIT. And we stay in touch with them on what that research and their modeling is doing to inform our understanding of it. So it is a science issue that we've got to understand better, but the risks are serious. And so we say we got a risk. We're not sure how this is all going to turn out. So what are the things we should be doing to manage that risk? And we say you manage it two ways. First, you mitigate the emissions of greenhouse gases, and that's why we are strong proponents of energy efficiency. And those numbers I gave you where we're now back to 1995 levels, that is, natural gas has had a huge impact on that as we switch from coal, but also government policy has impacted that. Higher CAFE standards for automobiles, higher mileage standards. So there are a number of steps that can be taken to continue to improve this that have the minimum effect on economic performance. Because it's not going to be very useful if we put in place policies that destroy the economy, because then we won't have the capacity to deal with any of this. So we need to mitigate it, but the second thing that we're going to have to start thinking about, and any good risk manager, I would certainly do this, is, well, what am I going to do if it turns out none of my mitigation steps make any difference? What if it turns out this is happening for a lot of reasons that I don't understand? Now what do you want to do? No, basically, what's plan B? And plan B means you better start thinking about what kind of adaptation measures are going to be necessary if the consequences that people are concerned about present themselves. And so we think the real issue has to be managed. Mitigation, what can we continue to do? Adaptation, if things start happening because we can't influence it, how are we going to deal with that? Now, as to our advocacy around a carbon tax, I would not support putting a carbon tax in place today, because I think we still have a lot of gains to be made through technology and other less intrusive policies on the economy, which are showing results. It is a global problem. We're not going to set the carbon tax policy for China, I promise you. You know, and other countries who are going to see continuing growth in emissions while ours are going down, that's going to have to be dealt with in a very different way. So it's kind of what can we do? So the carbon tax is a tool that if the policymakers ever decide they are to the point that they want to put in a very comprehensive process that influences people's behavior, because that's all you're really trying to do. And we put that position forward when the cap and trade was being debated very actively in the Congress. We do not favor cap and trade. We think it's inefficient. It adds a transactional cost, and the market can be manipulated too easily. We have some experience with this in Europe. We think a carbon tax is much more straightforward. You could administer it very simply through the current tax code. And the part people leave off is it's a revenue-neutral carbon tax. You should not burden the economy trying to solve what is a serious social issue. So whatever revenues come in, they go back to the economy in the way of payroll tax decreases, low-income assistance for those who will be impacted by this the most, and some assistance to states who will be disproportionately impacted because they are so heavily reliant on coal where other states are not. It's not difficult to administer that, and it's pretty hard to game the system. So if we ever come to that point, that's what we think is a more sensible approach, but I don't think we're to that point yet. And I hope that you support everyone's ability to express their view, and we support a very robust debate on all aspects of this, and that's why we're going to continue to support a broad range of people who opine on this. It is too important to shut out all the other voices.
Two questions. First, with respect to alternative fuel or alternative energy sources, solar and wind, I think you indicated that there are projections of less than 10% market supply, 7% for wind, 2% for solar. Why such a small percentage of market supply? Second question, this week when I went to fill my gas tank up, the prices were about $4. And whereas I recognize that's a small portion of what's being paid in Europe and the rest of the world, what are the projections of costs for the U.S. for the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, they try to take both of those. The second one will get me in a lot of trouble with the Justice Department, but I'll do my best. The reason you don't see a larger share of global energy supply coming from renewables is there's two things going on. First, they're starting from a very, very small share of meeting energy demand today. So if you think about how fast can you grow a business? I mean, what kind of rate do you have to be on? Well, even at a 20 times growth rate, which is pretty extraordinary, they're starting from such a small base. That's just as large as they can get. The second problem or challenge, though, is the energy demand is not standing static. It's going up by a third. So you've got a renewable alternative fuel choice down here that's chasing already a very large base, which is growing. And so it's just, and this growth is on this huge number, a third. Their growth is on a very small number. And so it's really just math and manufacturing capacity and what experience curves tell us about technology and manufacturing growth. And some would say our assumptions are actually probably over optimistic, but we've tried to be as optimistic as we can because it's not so much what's the precise number, it's are these things ever going to make a huge difference? And our conclusion is no, they're not in this time frame. Okay, so there will be other options that are developed with time because I'm a huge believer in technology. Something is going to be found. We're going to have a breakthrough. But then you've got to get it to scale, and that's the hard part. Now, as to gasoline prices, well, most of you probably know 80% of the price of a gallon of gasoline at the pump is the price of crude oil. So just watch the price of crude oil, and when it goes up and down, just multiply times 0.8, divide by 42, because there's 42 gallons in a barrel of oil, and you'll see the price of gas going up and down. There is a lag effect in the supply chain. The other thing you have to remember in the price of a gallon of gas is national average 47 cents of its taxes. If you live in Connecticut, New York, you get the joy of paying 65 to 70 cents a gallon. So there's 80% plus another roughly 10 to 12%, so that leaves about 8% for the refiner and the marketer. And so if you went, this is not a great business, to tell you the truth. I say that so my refiners will keep working hard. But the margins on this business are extremely thin, and so there's not a lot of money making to be made there. So it really is just going up and down. The price of oil is what swings this thing. So if you have a disruption of supply somewhere in the world because there's an outbreak of civil disorder or there's some incident and a pipeline is shut down in a major part of the world, you'll see the prices kind of move. But in terms of what it's going to do in the future, all I can tell you is, as you've heard me say today, we have a lot of supply.
Tremendous job. Thank you so much, Rex. Today at the City Club, we've been listening to a Friday forum featuring Rex Tillerson, Chairman and CEO of Exxon Mobil Corporation. Thank you, Mr. Tillerson. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This program is now adjourned.